What's up, everyone? Good afternoon. I almost said good morning, but I'm sure it's the morning somewhere. Maybe not. I'm not very good at time zones. But anyways, it's news, games, and more. And today we're talking news, games, and more. I'm Sadie Goodman. I'm joined
games and
by
more. Sorry, what? Did I miss it?
News. And then you guys say games and more.
Okay,
news.
great. Games
and more.
Damn
it. We gotta. Okay, we'll do this. We'll figure it out by email.
All of you are going to request to never be a panelist on days that I host. Speaking of my lovely panelists, we've got JR below me. And then we've got,
Yeah, I'm down here.
Josh Du over here.
Hello.
And we've got Janet Garcia right over here.
Oh
my gosh, wait. Can we high five?
Wait.
Yeah.
Sort of.
What about us?
Close enough.
Yes, we got it.
Okay, so you're probably thinking,
we did.
why don't we start talking about the news? And I'm with you. So to kick things off, Baldur's Gate 3 early access launch date has been revealed after being delayed from its probably August 2020. But we got the launch date, and it is September 30th, 2020. So they actually maybe.
Probably, almost definitely.
Almost definitely. I like it. So the team needs time to optimize the game for PC and Stadia. And the early access, we can hear you, and we're talking through it. I love it. So Baldur's Gate 3's early access build will contain roughly 20 hours of gameplay, consisting of, get ready for this,
lots.
80 combat encounters, 45,980 lines of voice dialogue in English, 596 interactable characters. That's so many for an early access build. 146 spells and actions, 4-player online /LAN co-op. So JR, clearly you are very excited about this.
I am.
How excited are you about this early access date? What are you looking forward to Baldur's Gate 3? Just let's have it.
So I'm a huge D&D nerd. I'm a huge RPG nerd. So when they announced that Larian was the studio doing Baldur's Gate 3, I was like, I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how long I have to wait. Just make it happen. And then they were like, it's going to be August of 2020 for early access. I was like, but then that didn't happen, which is fine. Because the thing is, and Larian, which I really appreciate and I really respect them as a studio for doing it, is they're super transparent about the fact that they never really stop iterating on a game. Even before early access, when early access is happening, so we got all this information for today from this long, hour and a half long panel that Sven Winke did along with Adam Smith and Jeff Keighley and Chris Perkins from the D&D team. And they Sven brought up the point that if you're someone who's seen trailers for Baldur's Gate 3 and you think, oh, this looks like a really cool game, I can't wait to play it when it's finished, that's cool. Wait for the full game. Because early access is, again, early access. They're going to be working on stuff. There's going to be a bunch coming. But that said, looking at the sheer volume of content, you just listed that wild list of things. And it's funny because they kind of touted those numbers as a comparison against the early access for their last game, which was Divinity Original Sin 2. And that, Divinity's early access was a crazy amount. You could, if you replayed it, you could put 35, 40 hours into it. And that's a third the size of the amount of content that we're getting out of Baldur's Gate 3. So it's if you look at that thing where it's 45,000 lines of dialogue, that's not going to be for one playthrough, but seeing the idea that one playthrough A to B of the Baldur's Gate 3 early access could be 20 hours is insane when you think about the other permutations of all of the potential class combinations, character makeups, parties, decision making, because again, it really is from a combat standpoint, it's kind of a turn-based tactics game, which I love in an RPG because it really lets you get down to the nitty-gritty of that party management. But then when you factor in it's all about how your choices affect not just you and the people that you're doing quests for or whatever, but your relationship to your party and how the world views you and how different factions see you. And so I'm really, really excited to get in and play that. Sorry, I know I've just been babbling, but I could probably go on for another 20 minutes if you let me.
I'm excited that you're excited. And do you know who else is excited? Possibly Josh Du. Josh Du, are you excited? How do you feel about Baldur's Gate 3?
Sorry, buddy.
Bad guess, Sydney. Bad guess on that one. I
Okay,
mean,
It could have been worse because you could
I
have
don't know.
tossed to me.
I was playing a mental, like I was rolling the die. No, I'll give you a new question then. Do you play early access games? And if you do, like, how do you temper your expectations going into something, knowing that it's still a work in progress?
I mean, I'm rarely like super crazy about games. Like I've been burned too many times before, you know, and so I'm never like really raring to like jump and play this game as quick as possible. And so when it comes to early access, I'm like, it's okay. I'm down to miss out and let them figure out the bugs and the things that don't work right now and all that stuff. I want to like come into a game with a nice, smoothed out experience.
Once they properly launch into version like 1.0, like when the definitive edition comes out for PC and Stadia and PS5 and Xbox Series X or whatever in like a year and a half or 2 years.
Yeah, and then I'll play it on Stadia.
Yeah, maybe.
Will Stadia still be here then?
Said no one.
We'll see. They've leaned really heavily into the Stadia sort of partnership, and I think, I want to let other folks get a go, but like it is one of the few games that I think could really benefit from the Stadia angle. Sorry, that's just me.
No,
anyway.
you're totally fine. I was getting so distracted by this gameplay. Oh my goodness!
Oh, did you not see this trailer? Oh yeah, it's a gnarly.
Wow, I feel like I'm watching, what was it, Scorn from the first Xbox showcase?
It's got that Scorn energy, yeah.
So Janet, I feel you are so like pragmatic and just very like, I feel like you would have a system for when you go into playing an early access game and what constitutes like you being worried for the finished product versus understanding what's a work in progress. How do you approach that?
I think it's about going in and trying to like temper your expectations and also realizing that because you're going in early, it's an experience that might be a little bit flawed. I think people that are in the press like us, we are used to playing games that aren't finished yet and kind of turning a blind eye to certain things and then also addressing certain things. It's really difficult to tell sometimes when something is such a problem that we should tell the audience about it versus something you should kind of gloss over because it's a small glitch. I think early access functions the same, but the challenge there is other people don't come in with that necessarily. They just see, hey, this is the game, so it's not going to turn out. I think also what really impacts it is how close to the release date is the early access. Like I never do early access, but I did end up doing it for Ooblets because I've been looking forward to that game for years. And it doesn't have like a timeline right now on when it's going to get out of early access. So I've been enjoying that game a bit, but I definitely see some flaws. But for me, I'm put at ease because I don't know when that's coming out versus something like Baldur's Gate 3 has like a semi-solid release date at this point. So I do think playing it, you're kind of playing it through the lens of this is how far they have and how much lifting can they do at this point. I think those are the two key differentiators on how I feel when I go into an early access game, if I choose to do so.
Mm-hmm. And now, JR, are you playing early access?
I think almost certainly, yeah. My thing is like it's tricky because like Janet said and like Josh said, like the experience that you have with early access games can burn you and like it can really turn you off to what the potential of that full game is eventually, especially if you aren't necessarily really ready for the still in development side of things when you jump into it. And this is the thing where it's like, this is why we review early access games when they charge money for them, right? Like if you buy a game, you want to know, like, regardless of whether it's technically an early access or not, like you want to know if you're spending your money on something that you're going to enjoy. But for my money, like I'm definitely happy to jump into Baldur's Gate in a work in progress stage because like I know that even when I pick it back up again when the full launch comes around, like there are choices and avenues and like happenstances that could occur through like based on the things that I choose to do and the way that I choose to play the game that I'll never see again, and I'm someone that plays RPGs like pretty lawfully good when when I'm like making my own choices. I feel really bad if I like burn down a town or whatever. But early access, buy town, that's no guilt there.
Yeah, you
It's
get
like
the
a complete
freedom to
do-over.
experiment, right? Like,
Yeah.
kind of like just do whatever you want, and
Huh.
no like real repercussions.
I never thought about it
guilt-free,
that
baby.
way. Because I'm very lawful good as well. And I feel like no matter how hard I try, like there was the one time I told myself, oh, I'm gonna be really like chaotic and horrible. I was playing New Vegas and a Fallout New Vegas, and I ended up getting stuck in a glitch of a loop where I like killed a townsperson, but it was too early in the game. And so but they were supposed to teach me how to shoot my gun. And so then there was something that I needed that I couldn't get because the person was dead. And so then I just kept being killed by the townsfolk. And that was the only time that I've tried to be evil in a game. And it taught me not to do that. But
Well,
last
don't let those lessons carry over, because sometimes it's worth being evil. Which might be a weird thing to say, I guess. But.
No, I mean, maybe sometime. I don't know. I'm not going to go down that path. So last thing before we move on, JR, what does early access need to nail in order for you to like continue the hype going into the game's full launch?
Oof. I think it really just needs to nail that it's not like everything that we've seen up to this point isn't bull hockey.
Good save.
Thanks, but definitely covered that one. No, I mean, this is the thing, right? Where it's like I really love all of these ideas that Larian is getting behind, and like I spent a while talking to one of their developers a couple weeks ago, and we're gonna have that going up on the site tomorrow that you can check out. But like this idea that like they're constantly iterating on stuff and constantly adapting stuff. Like one of the things in the stream today was they had this like random idea like 2.5 weeks ago, and now that resulted in what was ultimately like a piece of set dressing being turned into a companion character. And so like I really hope that level of kind of flexibility in terms of like the core narrative and like how my decisions really ripple outwards and really affect my personal story and my adventure. Like I've seen too many games that promise that, and then it's just kind of a binary black and white choice. Mm-hmm. But that said, like there's a reason Larian's the one doing this game. Like Divinity, Original Sin 2 were like all about how your story was really and truly very, very unique to you. So I've got very, very high hopes for where it's going to go once it does leave early access. But we'll see, as with anything.
Can you play it on Stadia?
I might. We'll see. I've got my Founders Edition in a box sealed over there, so if I can have a reason to dust that baby off.
Oh, we were trying to test this out during the show, but their website doesn't work for me in Sydney. Does it work?
We can't click on it. We can't click on any of the links.
It works for Jen. Everybody,
go to
stadia.google.com. And can you click get started? Because I can't get started with Stadia.
Speaking of which, comment section. Skelly7483 said, WTF, Stadia? Put it on Xbox and call it a day. Stadia is dead already. We are going to... We're going to float here for a second because I think it's an interesting topic and I'm in charge. But so Josh, you were talking about Stadia. You're obviously on the website because you're interested in jumping into it. How are you feeling? Because I feel like the overwhelming sentiment is more or less that it is dead already, as Kelly has astutely pointed out. So why now? Why are you looking into it? Is it Baldur's Gate 3 coming to Stadia?
Should be.
Maybe it could be Baldur's Gate 3. Who knows? Like I've never like dipped my toes into that sort of genre of game yet. And so maybe it could be a good time to start, as well as like now I have this desk set up, and I've never been like a PC gamer at all. I've never really had a nice enough setup where I can enjoy sitting at a desk and play video games. So that's mainly why I'm interested in Stadia. I'm like, maybe I can give this
play at a desk.
I also don't have to like invest in a big ass PC and set all that up. I can just use the stuff that I got from work. Thank you, IGN.
Janet, we were talking about Stadia earlier, and I know that you mentioned that you want to get Stadia just to have a relic of the past, possibly.
Yeah, I would have wanted the Founders Edition just to have the controller. I think it'll be an interesting point in history. That being said, I don't think it'll probably make it. It's really struggling. I think the problem is, we've asked this question on and off the show and on several of our shows. Who is this for? Is it for someone, the casual person who's only getting like the console for like 1 or 2 games? But then if it is for them, like, are they going to want to be playing on this when their friends are usually like, if you're in like the sports sim ecosystem, you are used to getting a Sony console or a Microsoft console, and you have that console and that's what you do, and that's kind of like the culture around your friend group. So this sort of floats in a weird in between. I think it also has struggled a lot, like marketing wise and being clear on what it is, because a lot of people assume that it must be like a subscription service, but it's not. It's kind of like you just pay to be able to buy things from them, which is, I think,
it's like renting a
not exactly-
console, right?
Yeah, kind of. I did the math
Yeah.
too, and it would take like, let's say the next gen consoles cost like $500. Like, I think it would take like 4 years for the Stadia subscription to match it, which I think is
Interesting.
competitive with our current console cycle. But at the same time, with new things like Xbox's upgrading programs and like new ways to be able to purchase like these bigger consoles that cost like a big sum of money for someone to put up immediately, I don't think it ends up being a one-to-one. Then not to mention it doesn't really replace it because it's missing some stuff. So it just sort of struggles to find its footing, I think, and what it needs to be. I think it's a really interesting concept. I think it can still have like, and I wrote an op-ed about this like a long time ago, but I think it could definitely have an impact on the larger like way we play games as like a community. But I don't think it'll probably be able to succeed on its own. I think it will just kind of be what we look back on at like once streaming does become competitive with like having a physical box, we'll look back on Stadia and say this is kind of what started it, and these are the ideas they put forth, and here's how like the next thing iterated, even if the next thing is also something from Google. But I think it's sort of trying to set the tone, but I think it's a little too early for what it is, both in what it's trying to do and sell to people and the way it delivers or fails to deliver on the things that it's promising.
So you're basically saying it's like the Vine of gaming.
I feel like it's a lot less beloved than Vine.
I feel like it's like the
a lot of
the
people
Vita.
love Vine.
Have a lot of beefs with this idea of like,
It's like the Vita.
Google, this big
The Vita.
evil company. I like Microsoft or Sony. Like, I think that's kind of a funny way that people look at it, where there's some brands that you have like an affinity for because you like their products and you got to know them and they feel cozy to you, but they're still just as corporate and big and like a juggernaut. I will say Google is like in a lot of ways more massive than those companies, but it's interesting how people decide that like, I don't like this brand, and so anything that brand does, they just kind of automatically are opposed to it. And I think that's something that Google's struggling with as well in trying to do Stadia.
So that's actually a beautiful segue into our third story. So we're going to do third story, jump to the second story, because that's the way I do it here. But Oculus VR is going to start requiring Facebook accounts, and people are not stoked, as in they'll require you to have a Facebook account that is linked to your Oculus. So this was announced in a new blog post that starting in October of this year, first-time users on an Oculus VR headset will need to log in using a Facebook account. And if you already have an Oculus headset and you're thinking, phew, doesn't count, it does count by 2023. So you have a couple years to enjoy using your Oculus that is not linked to your Facebook. It does have this like language in there that I found a little confusing, but after 2023, users that have not merged their Oculus and Facebook accounts will still be able to use their device, quote, but full functionality will require a Facebook account. I'm not really sure what full functionality means, and I did not really see any evidence as to what that's pointing to really. But that brings up a few issues. I mean, for one, if you want to keep your Oculus and your Facebook separate, glaring issue to this new mandate. But also, if you don't have a Facebook account and you don't really want one, looks like you might, I don't know, reconsider what brand of VR headset you're looking at. The immediate response was not fantastic. I pulled some Twitter quotes, including, "I wasn't planning on getting an Oculus. Now I'm not planning on getting one even more," says Joaquin Baldwin.
What a bold statement and stance to take.
And
really
the reason
there.
the reason why was such a good segue to us talking about kind of trust in giant corporations is that Facebook has come under fire recently for a lot of reasons beyond just like My mom uses it and my grandparents, and I find there's not anything very interesting for me to be on Facebook for. But they also have had security breaches, improper handling of user data, and has been criticized for its role in spreading misinformation. Not the best track record. Do any of you have an Oculus?
Yeah, I have a Quest.
Okay. I'll start with you, Janet. Does this alarm you? How are you feeling in terms of merging your Oculus and your Facebook?
I mean, I think it sucks how dominant Facebook is, considering how problematic it is and the things that you just stated. I don't really think you can deny some of the things that have come up in terms of issues with Facebook that are larger than, I don't like it as social media. Like, there are a lot of other issues with it. That being said, it's kind of just a world you're forced to live in. It's funny how dystopian elements of like our world actually are. Like, you're like, I hate Facebook, I just use Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, So it is an unfortunate reality that as Facebook gets bigger and bigger and it owns more and more companies, that it's not surprising that they're going to try to use those acquisitions to further the thing that got them the acquisition, which is Facebook. That being said, for me, as much as I agree with like the messed up things about Facebook, I still have a Facebook. I still use my Facebook. I already synced my Oculus with Facebook because I wanted to use, like, they have integration with Facebook events. And from that, by extension, you can do VR experiences where you look at birds at the zoo, and I wanted to look at some birds. So
Birds
it's
at the
VR.
zoo?
So
Wait,
yeah,
that's
you can go
lovely.
like the aquarium. So the only drawback is it's not really going to the aquarium. They kind of put you into a virtual auditorium. It's kind of like when you go to the aquarium or the zoo, and you go to the theaters in those museums. That's what they put you in. They virtually put you into the theater, and you're next to real people. You can hear them chat, or you can turn that off if you don't want to hear them around. But I could like turn to someone in VR and be like, "Hi, like, how are you doing?" And there's like families and people there, or I could just turn that off if I don't want that. And then you can just look at birds. So,
so is this
that
viral
one.
Are you
functionality?
talking to real people or are you talking to virtual avatars?
You're talking to real people. It'd be like if I
Okay.
was in VR and JR was in VR, I could turn and see like, whatever JR's handle is, and I could be like, "Hi, what's up?" And I could hear him, and based on distance, like, it'll change like how loud the noise is. So if you're
Could
not
we
like
be
talking,
those
talking to
jerks who
avatars.
yell across movie theaters at each other?
Okay.
you could. Yeah.
Like, you're on one side, I'm be like, check out that bird over there.
Yeah, it's just all
Man.
noise. And you can
So I have a Vive,
yeah.
and I'm feeling kind of ripped off right now. I can't do that.
Well,
So
you can
I
download
sold-
the VR chat app, though, right?
I
you can
I
dress up
sold
a
out
Hank Hill or a hot
my
dog.
privacy and all of my rights so I can look at VR birds, which I think, well, real birds in VR. So I already did that. And I also I used it for the convenience of getting photos and videos off my Oculus Quest. Yeah, I'm just like, the world's already burning. I'm gonna get these pictures off my Quest. Like, that's
I mean,
where
I
I'm
think
at with
that's kind of touching on a point, though. Like, when the press thing says that like you won't be able to use the full functionality of the Oculus Quest, like, I'm pretty sure that's about the extent of what it really amounts to. Like, I definitely am not wild about the idea of Facebook being like, "Hey, you like playing cool VR games? Well, now you have to use it to talk to your racist uncle on Facebook." Like, that integration is like, if that really is like super mandatory, that's definitely a bad play on their part. But like you said, they've got until 2023 to reverse that decision. But I think that like the loss of functionality, if that's something that people are kind of getting up in arms about, that feels a little bit alarmist, just because I feel like it's gonna be stuff like that where it's like, "Oh, well, you gotta link your Facebook if you want to get your screenshots over to your Facebook profile," or like, if you want to attend this Kenny Chesney meetup that we've organized or whatever. Like, I mean, it's Facebook, so like they know their audience. But so like I think that, if you have an Oculus and you don't want to link it with your Facebook, by the time, and if they haven't turned this decision around by the time it becomes mandatory, I'm sure you'll still be able to use the equipment that you paid for. Like, the real question is, what do those limitations on service look like? But then also, like Janet mentioned, and like it says, like, all of the other problems with Facebook are still very much there within all of that.
Yeah. Actually, so when you were talking about I can't remember what you said just now, but you said something that made me think of this. So part of, yes, of course. Is that country artist?
Yeah, he's like
Okay.
Jimmy Buffett light.
Yes. Well, so I was reading one Twitter response, but there was another Twitter response because I do agree at a certain point I was kind of thinking like beyond just someone saying, I don't like Facebook, I don't want to merge this. Like, what are the other situations where maybe there's more defined boundaries that could be crossing? And someone named ASITP_Gord on Twitter said, "This is horseshit. Our company will not buy another Oculus product. I absolutely will not force my staff to have Facebook accounts to do client work." Now, I didn't look into Gord and like what business area of business they are in, but I do think that's a really interesting use case if they're using Oculus for work and then work having to require you to have a Facebook account. Like if IGN said, Sydney, you must, well, I guess I can't have a Mixer account. I don't know. Well, I mean, if there is some obscure thing that they made me create an account for, I don't know that I'd be stoked about that. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, can't you just like make a burner account? Like I'm kind of
okay,
like,
Josh.
Yeah. Like that's the other side of this too, right? Like
like if it's really such a big deal and you really don't want to give out personal information, make fake personal information. Like if
are you advocating for identity theft?
No.
I'm
advocating for
identity fraud.
Yes, fraud, identity fabrication.
Mm-hmm. So
roll the stat sheet for
you're like first name John, last name Ryan, like
yes.
Hey, wait a minute.
I work at IGN.
And then you'll
really
see
like Baldur
Yeah. I give out way too much information on these shows anyway, so you probably could do a pretty close approximation.
Yeah, you're not alone. You're not alone.
But I don't know who's this, like what this company is. Who Gord's company?
His icon looks like that dude from
Hot off
Metalocalypse.
the presses.
Breaking news.
From our lovely John Borba, who's producing the show, says that guy works for the company that did music and sounds for Goose Game, Rogue Legacy 1 and 2, Jet, 30XX, Wander Song. So he does music or the company who does music and sounds for games.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well,
that's
in that case, like if it's a company used Oculus Quest or Oculus whatever, I'm sure they can create, company accounts to use. Like just because it's a Facebook account, it's not like Social Security account.
I think it really depends on like how Facebook is using the data that it gathers from your Oculus Rift if you link it. Like, and 95% odds say that it's being used for nefarious purposes. So like, let the klaxon start sounding now as opposed to after it's already mandatory. But like, there's also the chance of like how much is it really going to affect you beyond how bad it already is,
So Josh, last thing before we go back to what was supposed to be our second story today. Josh, you said that you don't have a VR headset, or at least you don't have an Oculus headset. Does this change at all if you were to buy a VR headset, which brand you would go with?
No, I already have a burner Facebook account.
Oh, there you go.
He's John Ryan.
Yeah, it's the John Ryan account. If you are friends with John Ryan on Facebook, you're really friends with me. And I'll see you at that Kenny Chesney concert.
So speaking of virtual things and people who might be in the age range of enjoying Kenny Chesney, and we're alive to see The Matrix when it was in theaters. The Matrix 4, Lawrence Fishburne will be back.
Now.
So Lawrence Fishburne, who played Morpheus in the previous 3 movies, was not asked back to come for The Matrix 4, even though obviously Keanu Reeves is coming back, and I feel really bad because I can't remember the woman's first name, but her it's hyphenated with Anne, and she has a last name. I'm so sorry. My mind is at a blank. I'm at a loss. But anyways, thank you, Carrie-Anne Moss. There we go. Thank you. But so the reason for this, it has nothing to do with Fishburne outside of the fact that Morpheus in The Matrix Online, which spoilers for The Matrix Online, the MMORPG that continued the story from the original trilogy, Morpheus died in that. So it would not make very much sense for him to be back in The Matrix 4, theoretically. But I don't know. Is The Matrix Online still considered canon? anyone here a Matrix fan that has thoughts about its canon?
I kind of zoned out after the second movie, to be honest.
According to the Wikipedia page, rumors and the
There we go.
popular belief of a faked death still run rampant. So
Maybe this is part of like a really big marketing campaign where we all think Lawrence Fishburne is not in the movie.
and
And
we
then they
think we're
confirm-
living in the real world, but in reality, we're just batteries
robots.
for
Yeah.
robots.
I think the weird thing about this is if that is their rationale, is the idea of having one story that's across multiple mediums.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's weird.
So that actually was going to be my next question, which more specifically, Janet, do you have an issue on whether it's movies or, for example, Halo? I know draws a lot from their, this is specific to me. You don't play Halo. I'm going to scrap that. But there's a lot of video games, or even Star Wars does it sometimes, but I feel like it's not to a point where they alienate the main audience, where they'll draw from the canon outside in their extended universe, whether it's comics or TV shows, et cetera, et cetera. How do you feel about movies straying from what's actually in the movie to advance the plot?
I mean, I think it can do that, but you have to be careful not to assume that the people have already consumed that medium or are caught up on it. So I think, like, to your point with Star Wars, you don't really have to have like, there's a lot of Star Wars out there that you can consume if you were like really hardcore, but like you don't have to have watched like the Clone Wars to like be able to follow the main movies or anything like that. Like even Rogue One, you don't even have to know the original trilogy to be able to follow that plot line. Like I think they do a really good job at kind of pulling in from all these other things, but making it so that you can kind of just jump in. So as long as it's clear and not like as long as it doesn't seem like, hey, this big thing wasn't explained and you're like, oh well, you have to play this game that probably, I don't know if that game was good. Like I don't know if any of you played it or can speak
Sorry,
to it,
Morpheus is dying while you're talking.
but, oh really?
Very
Well, there you go.
blocky.
Yeah, we're all
Now
watching it
we're
right now,
caught
and
up.
it's sweet
Whoa.
4:3 footage.
Yeah, so
Oh,
that
man.
could be a good experience.
Oh,
It could
that's-
not. I have no way of knowing, but yeah, as long as it doesn't feel like you're missing this big piece, I think it's fine. But if it's expected to be like a continuous thing that I was paying attention the entire time, I think that's a little bit of a big ask for an audience.
So this is up for either Josh or JR. I'm not sure if either of you are very passionate Marvel fans, but I know last Comic-Con, I think, when it was all of those Disney Plus Marvel shows that were being announced that, you know, have the cast members from the original Avengers and kind of this era. Yeah, this era of Marvel, and that they will be tied to events in the movies.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it was ever completely announced or that anybody ever said, like, you must watch these TV shows to really get the most out of all of the films that Marvel's going to put out. But I think that that's a really interesting scenario in terms of how much do you think companies can depend on their fan base, especially a fan base as rabid as Marvel's fan base, to be consuming both a movie and a TV show?
I mean, I think it.
Go for it.
I think it kind of boils down to what the sort of ancillary product is, right? Like a Disney Plus series that's like 8 or 9 episodes long, and assuming, you know, we're looking at, you know, Mandalorian levels of production value, like that's great. Like I think that they can definitely say, like, you know, we can probably expect 60 to 70, maybe 80 or higher % of our core audience to check this out. But like, you know, going back to Star Wars for a quick second, like there was plenty in The Rise of Skywalker is a great example where it's like there's just too much stuff that isn't of that sort of cultural relevance, where it's like if they did a, you know, 8-episode Disney Plus series, cool, but instead it was like there's like a paragraph in an art book that clues you into who this one person is, even though like there's clearly a scene missing reel, like a whole reel of film just like out the other side of it, or like Finn's a Force user now or something, or like the whole Emperor coming back was like part of a Fortnite event, like stuff. I mean, it was terrible, but like,
was it really?
Yeah, it was. That's not bullshit.
Wait, I thought they were just like hinting at it. Like in
No,
Fortnite?
there was a period, I believe, in Fortnite, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but like I believe that his like message that they talk about in the beginning of Rise of Skywalker happened in Fortnite. Like that was the Fortnite thing.
Yeah.
And
oh
so
my
it's like,
gosh.
so shit like that is no, just don't do that. Like just don't do it. That's bad. Like do it like if you want to have like cool Easter eggs for fans of your property who also play Fortnite, you know, but like don't have canon events happen in these like very sort of secluded offshoots or like, you know, expensive coffee table books of concept art, you know.
Just to fact check ourselves for a second, it was the Emperor's Message was also in the Star Wars comics.
Okay.
I stand by my point.
As well as Fortnite.
So it's slightly better than it was.
But the message is like it's not even that important to the story, right? It's like
no.
Yeah, it's like a plot device, basically.
Yeah, but like that feels like a bigger beat than, you know, the comic thing I understand, but like that feels to me like a bigger beat than just like a Fortnite thing or even a single issue of a comic book where it's like the Emperor is back, like this is. And anyways,
big news.
To the Marvel point, I think that the WandaVision and the Loki show, like I think those are great examples of it, but like again, you need to have the Disney money to be able to do that, you know. Like I'm not I can't super say, I don't even remember who produces The Matrix at this point. Is it Warner Brothers? It's a Warner Brothers movie, right?
I believe it is WB.
They like, you know, WB Interactive, the video game wing, like if they released a Matrix game 2 years ago that had found widespread popularity, like if it was the Matrix's Fortnite or whatever, like that would A, be terrible. I would never, I'm sorry I suggested that exist, but like B, that would be a different story. But like I can't imagine that they're going to pull plot points from a 20-year-old or, you know, a 15-year-old video game at this point. But I also just want to point out that when we rolled the B-roll of Morpheus getting shot, it was totally behind a fence, so he's definitely not really dead.
Yeah. The Wikipedia page also says his real-world remains have never been found. So
there it is. And I believe Mike Pondsmith, the guy that wrote Cyberpunk 2020 and is working on 2077 with CDPR, also had a hand in the Matrix Online, and he loves that kind of like off-screen Marvel death where everyone's going to come back from the dead at some point, so they just don't show you them getting killed.
Right. But there's no Lawrence Fishburne in this movie. That's the whole point.
That we know.
Unless he's a liar.
Unless he's a liar.
Or they cloned him and they're using his clone.
Yeah, well, we also, you know, there was a great cameo.
Hired another person to do it.
Yeah. Oh no.
All right,
the
Janet.
other option.
Yeah, they could just recast him.
They're using his clone before hired other actor.
Yeah. They're
Okay.
Marvel actually tried the whole thing before though, with like back when like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out, or when it was running. I think they were running alongside, what was it, Captain America,
Winter Soldier, I think.
Winter Soldier, yeah, that's right. And they ran into this issue where they integrated Nick Fury's death into the show, but within the span of the movie, he's dead and then not dead. And so in the show, though, they're like, oh my gosh, he's dead. But then if you watch the movie, you're like, oh, he's not dead. And then the next episode, they're like, oh, he's not dead. And you're like, oh, well, I knew that. And it's just like this weird timeline thing.
I would
where,
love
like,
to watch these pieces of media with you.
Like if you miss the movie and then watch the show, you're like, oh my gosh, Nick Fury dies? And then the movie's spoiled for you. Either way, you're gonna get spoiled. Like no matter what happens.
It sounds like.
But like I think that, you know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think you raise a good point. Like that was a really good beta test for how that all works out, you know? Because like the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is rough, but like they just ended and a bunch of people really loved it. I only watched the first few episodes. It was very Monster of the Weeky, and I was not super about it.
You didn't even finish it, Janet.
I didn't. You're right.
I'm only on season 1.
I mean, I don't watch it.
I didn't feel like paying attention to TV.
I didn't watch it either. I read about it. And I'm telling you what I read.
So before we wrap things up today, I want to take a quick poll with everyone, and we'll go in a circle. So I'll go JR, Josh, and then Janet. But how likely are you to consume all of the peripheral material for whatever it is. And let's say it's not something like your favorite game in the world or your favorite movie in the world. It's something that like you're interested in and you like. But like,
it's like
how
it's like a B tier fandom for me.
Yeah, because I feel like if it's like passionate, like that makes sense that your passion is just like drawing you through. That feels more
that's Marvel for me.
Yeah,
so,
but as like a consumer,
yeah.
How likely are you to go and consume all of the peripheral stuff, buy the art books?
All of it, definitely not. Like at a B tier or lower, for sure not. Like I'll watch the Netflix series or the Marvel or the Disney Plus series or whatever, and like, you know, if there's like a special on ABC, maybe I'll tune in, or like read a comic if someone's like, hey, these are really good. But you know, the $60 art book and the, you know, grinding through Fortnite and whatever, like that's not going to be my jock or my jams.
That's fair. Josh,
what franchise would be for you to like, if they integrated with Fortnite, you'd be like, okay, I gotta play
I have to play Fortnite. Damn it.
If they have like Baldur's Gate integrated with Fortnite.
I don't even think I love Baldur's Gate I don't even love D&D that much. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, look, don't get me wrong, I love D&D, but like,
he just hates Fortnite.
I don't know. I don't know if there really is that kind of franchise. I mean, maybe RoboCop, because I think that's like just ridiculous enough that I'd be like morbidly curious, like what could this possibly be?
That would be dope. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
See?
Dead or alive, you're coming with me. Like, I want the weird crossovers. That's my shit right there.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a better question. Josh, what franchise would it have to be in order for you to consume all or most of the peripheral material?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the first question earlier, and I was like, I don't even care about Star Wars like that much. And so like all the spin-off games or like the side plots, like I'll read a Wikipedia page about it if I'm curious. I'm not going to go out and consume the whole thing. But what franchise would it have to be to I can't.
That's fair because I'm going to be honest. I don't know that I have one.
Yeah,
I think I might have to go with JR on this. Like the weirder it is, the better. Like I don't care about something so much that if it had like a mobile game, like I wouldn't play it, you know?
Yeah. I think that's the thing, right? Where it's like that kind of rabid fandom is not like to be frowned upon. Like if you love something that much and you want to consume, like cool. Pass.
Yeah.
Janet, do you have one? Do you have a franchise?
Yeah, I would say Jak and Daxter. Even though I still haven't played Jak X because we all know it's not that good, but I'll play it for the story and for the experience. But I have like all the limited run collector's editions.
Oh wow, those are nice.
And then I have the copies on PS2, and then I have the remaster for PS3. And I think I also have here Daxter for PSP. So like I'm kind of all in, but it's also easy to be all in because there's not that much stuff. I think at a certain point I do probably have a line. That line has not existed yet with Jak and Daxter, so that would be like my all-in thing. Like, oh, Jak and Daxter movie sounds horrible. I would definitely watch it.
What about a $35 coaster set?
Yeah. Oh, also, I actually do have
her coasters.
No, I have this vinyl of the soundtrack, but I don't own a record player. I'm cool. That dumb. So
I have the RoboCop soundtrack up there. So, it's okay.
Yeah. Just bring down your most obscure vinyl. It's like the millennial game show. But yeah, so I don't have the coaster set. I would buy it. I have this though.
What about the RC car?
Is there one?
I don't know. I would hope so.
Don't play these games because that car was like badass.
I have been informed that we're no longer talking about the Matrix 4, and when I was informed about that, I forgot that's the story we were talking about. So we're gonna move on real quick because we got to end on a high note, and by high note I mean an update on WB Games Montreal, still teasing that Batman game. So today's update is that this teaser campaign has officially launched to the public, and more details have been found in the redacted website that basically confirms it's teasing a rumored Batman game reportedly called Gotham Knights. New clues seem to reference Batgirl and Two-Face. So if you head to the website, you click and hold the entry button and enter the code 761 to unlock today's image, and it's a map piece with the phrase "one step closer." IGN got a hot tip that the codes for each day is the barcode for Detective Comics number 359. which is the first appearance of Barbara Gordon's Batgirl. And then Twitter user P. Rezobard or PRSOBard, not sure which, from the Batman Arkham Discord also managed to find the second map file in the website code, which gives the phrase face to face when unlocked, which potentially confirms Two-Face.
Face to face. I love that.
So that was
a lot
super
of
nerd
stuff.
hat for a second. That was actually a really good run of comics a bunch of years ago. Face to face. It was like Harvey Dent took over the Batman role for a little while, and then like went crazy again and like burned off half his face with acid. It was wild. It was a good time. I don't think that's going to happen in this game though.
I think that summary was a good example of like, are you down to consume all of this content for this one goal? Like, I'm just gonna. It sounds like it has a good shot at being a good game, but that whole like meta lore, the puzzle piece falls into I'm gonna swing back when it's all out there, and hopefully when it is all out there, it will be substantial and not just it exists. I'm like, I already knew. We already know. So hopefully it'll be a little bit more concrete and less cryptic. Though I guess it is exciting for people that are really into lore.
Mm-hmm. Now, go ahead, Josh.
I'm really scared of Gotham Knights as a title because that sounds like a games as a service thing. So I'm really hoping it's not that. I'm also
not DCU Online
the Suicide Squad isn't that.
I think I think you can have one of the two isn't.
I know that's the thing. They can't both be right. Like, I mean, let's not jinx it, but like. They can't both be.
I'm knock on wood that they're not.
You should stop saying that. But if you had to choose, which one would you feed to the games as service model?
I'm about
Squad.
Rocksteady's game than WB Montreal's.
I think you cut out at the moment that you made your declaration.
I said Rocksteady. I'm more excited for Rocksteady, and I would rather let the Montreal one be the games as a service thing.
Okay. Janet, you're shaking your head in agreement?
Yeah, because like with Suicide Squad, it's already like had a rough go. Like just as an idea, like the phrase Suicide Squad has a lot of negative baggage. So it's like, let's just put more negativity.
It's already dead.
It already has it. So it's like, all right. If anyone has to go down, that one would be like the less painful one versus Batman. Like people have not like, and I like Batman. This is no Batman shade, but like people do not shut up about Batman. This Batman game it's all I've heard about for so long that like, I really hope it's good because if it's not, I can't stand witnessing the whining that will happen if it's not good. Like I can't live through that. I don't want to experience it. I don't want to see people I care about just like in pain. Like I just can't. So for Suicide Squad, like who's really putting all their eggs in that basket? You hope it's good, but you'll see.
For sure. And before we continue and I ask JR his thoughts, I would just like to remind everybody there's a good possibility that both games are great.
Yes.
So, JR, which one would you feed to the wolves as a games of service?
Both are great. Which one would I rather see executed? I do, honestly, like I'm gonna say neither because I think if
that's not the question.
Okay, fine. If I had to pick, I would say honestly the Suicide Squad from Rocksteady. I think that could be like. No, I know, buddy. I know. Look, I think the thing is, like, if you're gonna come out with a superhero themed games as service, and like we've seen like the I played a little bit of the Avengers beta over the weekend. Like, I see the bits of gold in there. I don't necessarily know if it's gonna hit all those beats right, but like, I think that the superhero universe type thing, and like obviously Suicide Squad is a little bit different than like the Avengers, but like. I think that the superhero kind of aesthetic is a really good fit for the like games of service where you're playing with friends. Like there's a bunch of different items and like there's a pursuit of both loot and story and a bunch of different gameplay modes. Like, and I think most importantly, like Rocksteady's been working on this ostensibly for 4 or 5 years, and they've seen all the other mistakes get made so far. you know? And I think that if like a studio of their quality and they're like making the games of the caliber that they do, I trust them to take on that kind of challenge and to really knock it out of the park.
So you're not burning it or executing it. You
No,
think that out of the
far from
two,
it.
this has the best shot of being a good games as a service game.
Yeah, and like the other thing too on Gotham Knights or whatever it ends up being actually called, like I agree with Janet. I'm definitely super burned out about the marketing nonsense for this game. Like I wouldn't have given a damn if back in December they were like, hey, it's called this, these people are making it, like it's out in 2022. Like that'd be fine. But like the little have a little piece, little taste. Like I don't. I'm bored.
You're
of
right.
that.
I didn't like any of that. That was awful.
I'm sorry.
So that actually echoes one of
How do
the
I mute this whole thing?
one of the comments, which is because there has been conversation as far as it's a Batman game that is not coming from Rocksteady, and I don't know. I think some people maybe are wondering if fans like still have a trust, or not still, but have a trust in WB Montreal doing the same justice that Rocksteady does in the Arkham series or has in the other Batman games that they've done. But so Holtic said, I don't think this is a lack of trust in WB Montreal so much as it is they've been teasing this forever. And at this point, no one is hyped for a teaser to something we've known about for years and have regularly seen teasers for during that time.
Yeah.
Womp, womp, womp,
I need like a gameplay deep dive at this point. Like I need a full trailer. I need like at least 5 to 10 minutes of gameplay. Like, and yeah, I don't know. To get back to like the whole idea of it's like I think a lot of people are under the assumption that it's like a Court of Owls game, which I think is, you know, could be really interesting. Like the idea that there's a bunch of assassins and, you know, this network, like, I'm not sure what a Batman game or like a Gotham game looks like as a games as service thing, but it could be interesting, you know. And like, because it was Montreal who did Arkham Origins, right? Like a lot of people dunk on that game, but it holds up. You know, it's not, you know, it's definitely not like the best in the series, but also neither is Arkham Knight.
I mean, it's less that I like trust WB Montreal. For me, it's like I kind of. Like we got a lot of great Batman games already, and I'm like, to me, I'm more excited about like this fresh Suicide Squad angle. It has one really bad movie, really bad movie, but that's it. Suicide Squad as an idea, as a franchise, it's like pretty great, and I think the game could be really good. And so I like it when, you know, studios do fresh new ideas. I'm more excited for those than sequels usually, except when it's Breath of the Wild. When that sequel got announced, I was very hyped.
The fresh new idea of Suicide Squad, which has never existed on any other medium outside of this video game that would be coming out.
Never. This is the first time a Suicide Squad has ever existed in media, and it's not even out yet.
Well, also like just the idea from the teaser image we got where it's like, I don't know if it's Bizarre or if it's Superman, but if it's Superman, like that's just a wild step. Just like, hey, here's a video game where your objective is to kill Superman. Like,
yeah. My favorite theory for that right now is that it's actually Eclipso possessing Superman because of all like the purpleness and stuff. And I was like, when I heard that theory, I was like, oh shoot. Yeah. I don't think it's Bizarro. I think Bizarro is like too obvious, but I'm hoping for an Eclipso Superman.
You two read comics.
Hey,
we'll geek out about this later.
Yeah.
No, I've enjoyed the comics that I read. I have a stack down there. I borrow it from my friend. Anyways, Janet, before we leave, do you got any thoughts on this? How are you feeling? What are you hoping for? This is a lot of questions. I'll narrow it down to one. What are you hoping the announcement for this game actually is?
It doesn't really matter what it is at this point. I just want it to be substantial enough that we can have like, and there's no shade to this conversation, but a concrete conversation on it where we can say, hey, here's what I saw and what I feel about that specific thing, rather than like a logo and a date or like something a little bit less concrete. So that's just what I'm hoping for. Like at least something to kind of give us an idea of what we can expect from the game, what we might like, what we might dislike, and really start to ground the conversation and speculation in something more specific to the game and not just like the world building.
Yeah, I think a lot of our conversation today can be viewed as very negative and pessimistic, but it's just because we don't know anything about these games. Like it's all speculation, and it's just
despite having heard about them for a year and a half.
yes, and we still like know almost nothing about them. So it's like, yeah, I think it's just more fun to talk about the worst case scenarios as well.
I still stand by, like, I think they could both be exceptional, even if they are both, you know, multiplayer games as service, whatever you want to call it.
I would hope so.
Well, there's plenty of people who like games as service as well, who maybe are excited about that. But now we will sign off. So thanks everybody so much for hanging out. It was lots of fun. And we'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific time discussing tomorrow's news, games, and more. But for now, I'm Sydney Goodman. We've got JR, Janet, and Josh Dew, and news,
Games
and more. Damn it.
and more.
We'll
High
see y'all
five.
tomorrow.